The whispering shadows of Willow Creek. Willow Creek, Illinois, was the kind of town where everybody knew everybody and everything. People baked casseroles when neighbors were sick, waved at strangers driving by, and kept the biggest secrets tucked neatly behind warm smiles. But one icy Thursday morning, a piece of news ripped through the town like a siren. Elena Ward, mother of 3, PTA volunteer, and the kindest woman at First Baptist, had disappeared. No forced entry, and no signs of struggle, and no reason to run. She'd simply left home in her silver Honda for a meeting and vanished on a straight, familiar road she'd driven 100 times. Willow Creek panic, BY sunset, volunteers were combing cornfields with flashlights. BY Friday, national news vans circled the town square. And by Sunday morning, during the pastor's sermon, Elena's name was being whispered more often than the name of Jesus. Her mother, devastated by the disappearance and crushed under the weight of unanswered questions, passed away only weeks later. Before dying, she whispered a bitter promise to her family. He lost Elena, and he will never know joy with another woman again. Grief, in small towns, hardens quickly into something sharper than truth. Pastor Michael Ward waited 3 years before remarrying. The congregation encouraged him, some out of compassion, others out of curiosity. But when he finally did, the town buzzed. His new wife, Diane Hale, was not what they expected from a pastor's bride. She was sharp, stylish, and unafraid to ask questions. She came from Chicago, practically another universe to folks in Willow Creek. For a while, people tried. They brought pies. They said, "Welcome to the family." But no one meant it the way they said it. Within weeks of the wedding, Michael fell sick, terribly sick, stomach cramps, dizzy spells. Fainting, his sisters, Agatha and Miriam, swooped in like storm clouds. "It's Elena," they whispered to anyone who'd listen. "Her spirit isn't at rest." Soon people claimed they felt cold air whenever they passed the Ward home. The porch light flickered every night at 10:17 p.m. Diane woke up from dreams she couldn't explain. Even her sister back in Chicago called one night, saying she felt danger hovering around that house. To a town primed on superstition, it was enough. But Diane wasn't superstitious. She was observant, and Willow Creek didn't like women who asked the wrong questions. It didn't take long for her to find cracks in the story. Michael's sisters didn't just help him, they owned him. They prepared every meal he ate. They handed him his medication, never explaining what it was. They intercepted phone calls, managed his bank accounts, and even approved the content of his sermons. Michael wasn't sick. He was sedated, exhausted, manipulated. The haunting was nothing but a suffocating web of control spinning tighter every day. But the biggest shock came when Diane discovered that Elena's family had fueled the ghost rumors themselves. Not because they believed their daughter was haunting anyone, but because they wanted Michael alone. Forever. If he remarried, if he moved on, if another woman found peace in that home, they would lose the last piece of Elena they could still control. A haunting wasn't needed, just whispers, and Willow Creek loved whispers. When Diane confronted the sisters, the house erupted like a tornado hitting dry brush. "You will never be Elena," Agatha hissed. "You don't understand this family," Miriam growled. "You don't deserve him." But Diane saw the truth. They weren't defending their brother. They were defending their power. And Michael, raised to obey, conditioned to yield, stood behind them, silent, afraid. A man who no longer remembered which thoughts were his own. At that moment, Diane made the clearest decision of her life. She packed her suitcases. She left the parsonage. She left Willow Creek. And she left Michael standing in the doorway, trapped in a life he didn't have the courage to leave. Michael stayed with his sisters, lonely, dependent, and haunted not by Elena, but by his own passivity. The town eventually stopped whispering about ghosts, but they kept whispering about him. Diane rebuilt her life in Chicago, carrying with her a truth she'd learned the hard way. A man who gives up his voice becomes a man who cannot lead, cannot love, and cannot live freely. A man controlled by others will destroy every woman who tries to build a life with him. In the end, the shadows over Willow Creek weren't supernatural. They were the shadows cast when a man stops being the author of his own story.